G'day fellas. So I wanted to make a video about building your own battery box. I've seen there's plenty on the market, but not all of them have got exactly what I wanted. So I'm going to run you through how I built this bad boy and what it's capable of and how you can best use it on your next trip. So I needed it to be small form factor. I didn't want it to be using up too much space. I needed it to be portable, able to charge off the car, the solar panel, or in a caravan park or at home. I wanted it to be pretty cheap but safe and waterproof. So I started with this super cheap metal ammunition case. It's got a cool look about it. It's already painted, it's got handles, and this is the battery I already had. It fits nice in the box, but it was a little bit tall, which I'll get to later on. The bottom of the box is it's got a raised indentation so that you can stack them. I need to flatten that because I wanted the battery to fit in properly, so I just took to it with a hammer. Once I gave it a little massage at the bottom of the case, the battery sat a lot better instead of sitting on a slant where the indentation was pushing it up in the middle. I measured up some ply. Unfortunately, I don't have the exact dimensions. It will differ depending on what kind of box you purchase, but it was just two small offcuts of ply that I glued and screwed into an L shape, which you'll see as I go forward. Just some plain old wood glue. I just ran that along the edge, and that stuff dries clear, so it's not too bad for looks. And then I just chucked 3 screws in it. They're countersunk screws, so they sit nice and flush with the wood. I let that dry for a day, and while I did that, I put the battery in the box and put the nuts in that the actual bolts, that came in with the battery, and they're too tall. They're going to touch the top of the box. So what I did was I used a flap disc on an angle grinder, and I just shaved the tops of the battery down. Now I'm going to use a hole saw to make some holes for the USB and the cigarette plugs. So I bought this Sutton Tools 32mm hole saw. I already owned the arbor. The arbors are pretty expensive, but the wholesale themselves are not too bad. This is the style of plug that I'm going to be using. I like them because they've got the rubber insert, which helps them resist water. So I measured the plug I'm going to use to see how far down I have to drill the hole, and they say no adventure without adversity, so I started drilling the hole, and then the arbor for the drill bit, it actually snapped. And of course you can't just use a normal drill bit, you have to use one that's had a recess put into it. So after getting another drill bit, I drilled the first hole, and yeah, you can see the damage from where the first drill bit snapped, but I'll come to that later. After I drilled the hole, I just quickly test fit the plug. Of course there's going to be 3 plugs down the side, so I drilled 2 more holes, and I just used a round file to just flatten off the edges a little bit and make it less sharp. Good old-fashioned nail polish. Of course the project has to be cheap, that's one of the requirements, so nail polish to cover up the scratch marks, which you won't see later anyway. And also I put that around the edge of the 3 holes that I cut, just to reduce the corrosion that might happen on the bare metal. That's the piece of wood that I prepared earlier, so that's going to stop the battery from moving around, and that itself is not fixed to the box in any way. ABR Sidewinder, I love their gear. I'm going to use one of their circuit breakers. That's a 50 amp circuit breaker, and in true ABR style they give you everything you need, the lugs, the screws, everything. That's why I like them so much. They've really thought ahead. They even give you the weather seal to go onto the Anderson plug. It's like a rubber insert to stop water from getting into the Anderson plug. There's not many other companies that give you that as well. So yeah, if you check out ABR, they're Australian. It's good stuff. We're not going to use that weather seal, but instead I'm going to mount the Anderson inside the box. Big decision there was I don't want 2 big cables running to the outside of the box, so that mounted inside instead. I also wanted to keep this top of the battery like really thin form factor, so they're the connectors I've used. And as you can see, I've drilled the hole coming from the other compartment on an angle to make it easy for that fitting to bolt onto the top of the battery. And I like to solder everything, so everything's been soldered after it's been crimped. I just use a really cheap eBay crimping tool. Just look up crimping tool on eBay and you'll find that. And that's me just test fitting the wires. Of course you have to put the wire through that wood first and then crimp either side of it, otherwise you can't pull the wire through after. That's basically how I wired it up. It's just power going to the breaker, and then the breaker goes to the Anderson plug as well as the sockets. So I'll put a handle on the battery to make it easy to lift out of the compartment, otherwise you can't get your hands in there to pull it out. And once again you can see the breaker, the battery side goes to the Anderson plug, and the safe side of the breaker goes to the sockets, so that if anything arcs out in there, that it's protected. The breaker will separate and nothing will work. That's my MS Paint diagram of the basic wiring. The bottom right hand corner, that's the Anderson plug. Too lazy to type it in. I put some rubber in the lid. I wanted a second layer of protection for those terminals that might arc out on the metal lid. And yeah, I just want to talk about the power usage side of things. On the forums, it's what people always ask: how long can things last for? So let's say you got a 40 litre Engel fridge, car fridge. They pull about 2.5 amps per hour. Now you run your fridge all the time, so that's 24 hours of usage. And they do a 40% duty cycle, because when they get cold they turn off. So you basically go, how many amps does it draw? So 2.5 times it by the duty cycle, 0.4, and then times by 24 hours. So you'll use 24 amps in 24 hours. The battery's 33 amp hours, so you can run the fridge for a day and a bit. For example, LED lights, so they only draw 1 amp an hour, and you probably only run them from say 6 or 7 o'clock at night till midnight or whatever. So say 5 hours. So 1 amp times 5 hours is 5 amps, so you can run the box for about 6.6 days with that amount of usage for your lights, which is what I sort of intend to use this box for, is lights and maybe the fridge sometimes. So a pretty common question that gets asked online is how long can I run certain items for when you only know how many watts they use. So you need to know a couple of things. One is, so the battery box in your car use 12 volt systems. That's one part of the thing that you need to know. And the other thing is the rule that watts equals volts times amps. So if we rearrange that equation, what we need to know is 1000 watts divided by the system type, which is 12 volt, will tell you how many amps that item's going to use. So in this case, a 1000 watt kettle on a 12 volt system will use 83 amps in 1 hour. But kettles don't run for an hour. They might only run for say 5 minutes. So you work out 60 minutes, so an hour divided by 5 minutes equals 12, and then you divide that into amps. So 83 amps divided by 12 will tell you that the kettle, to get to boil a kettle in 5 minutes, will use 7 amps. So how does that equate back to our battery box usage? Well, the battery box is 33 amp hour, so potentially you could boil the kettle 4 and a bit times, or if you say you only boil it twice, that would use 14 amps out of your 33, and then you'd have power to spare for your lights and fridge, etc. So at the last minute, to conserve more power from the battery, I put a switch in that turns off the USB sockets, mainly because there's an LED light that always comes on whenever power is supplied to it. So when I want to use it, I push the button and the USB turns on. When I don't, the LED light turns off when I turn the switch off. So that's pretty much the making of the box. First of all, I really like the ability to turn off the light for the USB. So normally this ring around this USB thing, which when you buy them eBay spec from China, they've all got this LED. That's just going to flatten the battery over time
It's only a small amount, but I like the ability to turn it on and off. So what I've done is I've put a switch on the front just under here, which is completely protected by the handle, and as you can see, when you turn that on, you get power to the USB. Press it again, power's off. That's IP67 as well, so it's waterproof, just like the rest of the gear that I used. So pretty much because the box has the rubber seal around the lid, completely waterproof, and so is the switch, and so are the plugs. You would have noticed a checker plate I've put here. Now I wanted to keep the project price down, so could have bought more glue and stuff for it, but this tape, racing tape, you know, works on everything. I was very conscious of the battery lid, which is metal, being able to arc out the two terminals of the battery. So when it comes to that, not only did I put some insulation on top of the terminals, I also made sure that the wiring runs along the inside of the case below the battery level, and also put some of this rubber checker plate stuff, which if you look at my other video for building your false floor in the back of your four-wheel drive, that's just an offcut from that, so that didn't cost me anything, and now I know the battery can't arc out on anything either. As far as charging the box goes, so I'm just going to flip the camera around. So the box has got one cigarette plug there and another, just for general purpose stuff. I really like the ability for this box. Often you'll have your car set up, and then you'll have your camper. Like I've got a camper trailer here, and sometimes you want the gazebo. You know, you might have another family that you've met or something. You might want to put the gazebo halfway between your, in between camps, and that means running cords. You don't want to have to run cords from your camper or your car, and that's where this comes in. So you can pop this near the leg of your gazebo, set up all your lights. You know, there's always going to be a table there, so people can charge their phones off this in the gazebo. You know, so it's within hand's reach of when you're just chilling. And I just like the portability of it, and also, if the rain comes in, then you can just jump in the camper. Don't worry about the power and that. This thing's waterproof, so you don't have to, run around while it's raining trying to pack everything up. So safety feature, I mentioned before, ABR Sidewinder. I love their gear. It just comes with everything. They give you everything you need for the job: washers, nuts, bolts, screws. They've always thought about it. That is a 50 amp circuit breaker, so should anything arc out in there, or vibration has rubbed something through and it arcs out, that's going to switch the power off automatically, and then your box won't work, and then you'll be able to sort it out. Sort of the box not working will trigger, you'll have a look and see what's gone wrong. So I've prepared several scenarios for charging with the box as well. So the first scenario is you're in a caravan park. You've already depleted some of the battery out of the box. That's easy. You just use one of these. I love this thing. 800 milliamps. It tops up lead acid or lithium, which it's really hard to find reliable chargers that do both. This one's just got a switch. You can just hit the mode button, switches to lithium, and then you're good to go. Which you could put lithium in this box and it'd increase the capacity a lot. This one is a sealed lead acid, so don't have to worry about lithium, but it's nice to have the option. And just plug that into caravan park power, and off you go. Just charge a box and it'll turn off automatically. If you're out bush, there's several ways to charge it. Most people, I wouldn't say everyone, have got an Anderson plug hanging off the back of their car to charge their camper trailer, to charge a caravan batteries and so on. If you plugged this box into the back of your car and the car was running, it would charge up very fast, because that, as I mentioned before, that's just 33 amp hour, so it'll charge up pretty quickly. And obviously you're not going to want to run the car all the time, so if you've got solar panels, which a lot of people run folding solar panels or solar blankets, then you can just plug your solar straight into that, and that's going to charge it. For me, I've got solar panels on the car on the roof of the car, and that's unregulated. So I'll just take you over here. So I've just got a little, for 20 bucks on eBay, you can get one of these. That's just got an Anderson plug on it as well, and that is a solar charge controller. So yeah, you just plug your solar panel into that, plug the other end into the box here, and this will control the charging and stop charging when the battery's full. For 20 bucks, this is a PWM. So there's basically two types of solar charge controllers, PWM and MPPT. MPPTs are better, but obviously more expensive. For the purpose of keeping the cost of the project down, PWM's fine to charge a small lead acid battery like this. MPPT is good for battery banks, or where you want a smarter, more efficient use of the solar panel's incoming current. But this one here is fine just for this little project, and really cheap. So I'll put some links in the description anyway. Yeah, so that pretty much lets you charge off solar, off 240 volt, and on the run with your car. So 3 methods for charging. And yeah, that's the versatility that I wanted out of a box that was very hard. If you want to just buy a box instead of building one, one of the best ones that I've researched on eBay, pardon me, is actually a company called Antpak, ANTPAK. They make a box that has the solar charge controller built in, heaps of options like this with USB, cigarette, Anderson, and they even give you the studs that hang out of the box that you can, jump start a car or whatever you're doing anyway. But anyway, that's my my little battery box project that I've been working on, and I think it's neat, tidy, waterproof, and worth looking into if you really sort of want a cheap solution and have a bit of fun building it yourself. Alright, thanks for watching.